it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen. The Black Forest in Germany has long been shrouded in legend. But a journalist's assignment for a Halloween feature quickly turns those stories into something all too real. What begins as a simple exploration of Gothic scenery becomes a study in unease. Dozens of abandoned items scattered along the trails, and a massive tree carved with cryptic German warnings. The Black Forest by Augustus Cordoba. Part 1. I don't even know where to start. But maybe it doesn't matter. You probably wouldn't believe a word of it anyway. The way things are looking, I won't be around to hear your doubts. Well, I'm a travel journalist, Munich-based these days, although I grew up in the UK. When I first landed in Germany, I figured I'd crash here for a few months, build a few contacts, pitch to the European papers. One decent-paying gig turned into another, and soon I was signing papers for a studio flat near the city centre. Life was easy enough. I had friends, locals mostly, and though my German was garbage, I could bluff my way through most conversations. Work had kept me moving fairly consistently. Australia, Japan, Mexico. I liked the constant shift of continents, the anonymity of hotel rooms. So when my editor said I'd be staying local for the next one, I was already bored. Germany again? I asked. He smirked. Just west a bit. Black Forest. Wolfach. The name alone sounded like something from a nightmare. Miles of pine so thick the sunlight couldn't get in. Mountains that vanish into mist. They told me it stretched all the way to the Rhine, even brushing the Alps. A place that looked eternal and felt haunted. That was the real pitch, my boss said. Don't give me travel fluff. I want Gothic. Give me the forest the Brothers Grimm would have feared to enter. Halloween feature, easy money. I pretended to be annoyed, but honestly, I was into it. Horror had always been my thing, and the more I dug into the local folklore, vanishing hikers, pale women seen drifting through fog, strange sounds under the pines, well, the more the job started to feel personal. They flew me into Baden-Baden first. Fancy place in this beautiful spa town. 5-star hotel, gold-plated everything. Staff who smiled so wide. I hated it. Tourists everywhere, like ants crawling over a wound. I wanted to see the real Black Forest, not the spa town postcard version. So I rented a car and headed deeper in. A couple of hours of twisting roads and jagged peaks, one hand on the wheel, the other occasionally snapping photos through the windshield. The GPS signal died somewhere along the way, but I didn't care. The landscape was alive, wet, green, and seemingly endless. I ended up in a small village called Singersbach. A handful of houses, smoke billowing from the chimneys, the smell of rain and manure. It looked medieval, frozen in time, a place the modern world had forgotten. Standing there, I realized how far I'd come from the noise of Munich. No traffic, no people, just the whisper of wind in the trees. That's when it hit me. Cold, sharp, like a blade in the gut. No signal, no backup, no one for miles. As it turned out, I was right to worry, because something would prove to be out there, waiting. And the last leg of the drive felt like a descent into another world. Shorter, sure, but far more dangerous. The road wasn't a road anymore, just a frozen trail twisting through the white wilderness. Snow packed thick over layers of black ice, cliffs yawning open at the edge of my headlights. One bad turn, one wrong skid, and I'd vanish into the ravine without a trace. For a while, there were signs of life. Lonely cabins crouched in the valleys below, a resort glowing faintly through the storm like a mirage. It amazed me how anyone could fight nature this hard just to get a little peace and quiet. There were hikers, too, somewhere out there. The forest was famous for that. People coming here to find themselves. Few local businesses were smart enough to cash in on their foolishness. But soon, the lights vanished. No more cabins, no ski lodges, just trees, mile after mile of towering pines pressing close to the car, their branches heavy. The deeper I drove, the darker it got. Well, the Black Forest earned its name, honestly. The trees knitted together so thickly they strangled the daylight right out of the air. A false night, in a way. I could feel the isolation now, thick and suffocating, but I buried it deep and kept going. And then suddenly there it was. I turned a sharp corner and rolled into a clearing. My cabin. It sat dead center, small and perfect, surrounded by untouched snow. It's like the trees had retreated, leaving one circle of silence as an offering. The sunlight hit the frost and made the whole place shimmer, the peaks of the mountains standing tall behind it like sentinels. The cabin itself looked pulled from a postcard. Solid pine logs, 2 floors, a wraparound porch, thatched roof. It's the kind of place you could fall in love with, if you didn't know better. So I parked, unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Before I'd even dragged my bags in, I ran through the place like a kid at Christmas. Everything smelled of pine and smoke. Hand-carved furniture, stone fireplace, warm wooden walls. Downstairs a lounge, small kitchen and supply closet. Upstairs 2 bedrooms, a study and a bathroom. Perfect. Unpacking took hours. I was staying for 2 months, maybe longer. Every 2 weeks I'd make the long crawl back to Singersbach for supplies. I brought enough gear to survive a siege. Tools, food, spare tires, the works. I even rolled 2 heavy snow tires out of the trunk, sweating in the cold while the light died. By the time I was done, the sun had gone down. I wasn't planning to work that night anyway. Figured I'd give myself a few days to settle in, to let the place sink into my bones before I started writing. No signal, no TV, nothing but me, the fire, and the slow tick of cooling wood. Oh, you don't understand darkness until you've been alone in it. No streetlights, no passing cars, just the moon hanging over a field of snow, silent and cold. I fell asleep on the couch, watching it through the frosted glass, that pale eye staring down at me. When I woke, morning light had crawled through the shutters. I cooked a rough breakfast on the gas stove, dressed in heavy winter gear, and packed some lunch. I was going to explore, walk until I hit exhaustion, and then come back before dark. Well, they'd warned me not to stay out after nightfall. I should have listened. The moment I stepped outside, I knew something was off. It hit me like cold air in the lungs. Pure silence. No birds, not one. And during my research, I'd read about the forest's wildlife. Owls, thrushes, woodpeckers. But now, nothing. Not a single chirp, not a flutter of wings. Just the dead stillness of snow and trees pressing in. I started humming under my breath, low and tuneless, just to push back this quiet. When I reached the edge of the clearing and crossed into the trees, I turned once to look behind me. The cabin was a small shape in the distance now, framed by the sun. As I kept walking, the light faded behind the wall of pines until it was just a thin smear of gold leaking through the branches. And it wasn't pitch black yet, but the air had changed. It was heavier and duller, as if the forest had swallowed the daylight whole. I moved faster, trying to keep the unease from settling in. I'd hoped to catch sight of something alive, a deer, a fox, maybe even a lynx if I got lucky. But the woods were empty. There was no movement, no rustle in the undergrowth, not even the drone of insects. The place was lifeless, dead quiet. I told myself it was my fault. Too much noise, too many clumsy footsteps, that was all. The plants at least didn't seem to mind me. Thick ferns, slick with frost, and bushes heavy with blood-red berries stood out against the snow, beautiful in a brutal kind of way. Around midday, I stopped for lunch, sitting on a fallen log and eating in silence. The forest didn't make a sound, not even a groan of wind through the branches. When I got back on my feet, I started checking my watch more often now. First every half hour, then every few minutes. Oh, the sun was sinking faster than I'd expected. It was time to turn back. And that's when I saw it. Something dark jutting out from a snowbank just downhill. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. Against the white, it looked almost black. Well, curiosity tugged at me, and I stepped forward carefully, boots crunching in the crusted snow. As I got closer, the shape took form. 2 hiking boots. Nothing else, just boots. One left, one right. Standing upright in the snow like someone invisible was wearing them. Well, I tell you, a shiver ran down my spine. Every instinct I had screamed that something wasn't right. Who in their right mind would leave their boots behind in this place? Out here, that's a death sentence. Maybe they panicked. Maybe they'd gotten lost. Then why were they standing like that? Perfectly placed. No footprints leading to or from them. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the trees, the ground, the slope above. Nothing. Not a print, not a drag mark, not a sign of anyone else. Just mine. Those boots hadn't been worn for a while. Maybe a day, maybe longer. And for the first time I felt it. More than just silence. It was the weight of being watched. I forced myself to breathe. Slow. Controlled. Logic, I told myself, yes. Stick to logic. There was no telling how old those boots were, nor any way to know how long they'd been sitting out there in the snow. Whoever left them had their own story, and it wasn't mine to solve. I buried the unease, clawing at my gut, turned my back on the scene, and trudged home through the pines. The next morning I tried to shake it off and do the same routine. Different direction this time. Fresh path, clean slate. The forest felt the same, cold and watchful, but I managed to settle into a kind of rhythm, the quiet pressing in around me. Well, no animals again, no birds, no tracks but mine. Still, there was a strange peace to it. The forest seemed to breathe in slow, measured silence. Then, it happened again. Something dark at the edge of my vision made me stop. I blinked, turned, trying to make sense of the shape half buried in the snow. Another pair of boots. For a moment my brain scrambled, convinced I'd walked in a circle and come back to yesterday's spot. The same uneasy déjà vu crawled through me. When I got closer, I saw the difference. Different make, different wear. These ones were sitting behind a holly bush, half covered, upright like the others though. The first time I'd felt uneasy. Now it was something sharper. Confusion, disbelief. What the hell was going on? Who was leaving all these boots out here? Still, I didn't feel in danger. Not exactly, just, off balance. Curious in a sick sort of way. And so I kept walking. The third pair stopped me cold again. The fourth sent a pulse of fear through my chest. By the time I found the fifth and sixth, the shock had started to dull. My mind did what it always does. It normalized the madness. I even began spotting them in advance, half buried, scattered between trees. Sometimes 2 or 3 together, like groups frozen mid-march. By the time I'd lost count, I'd seen close to 50 pairs, I guess, spread out across the mountain like offerings to something unseen. It should have made it worse, but it didn't. The scale of it numbed me. A prank, I told myself. Some twisted art installation, maybe. People did weird things for attention. But the last ones broke me. 4 pairs, standing beneath a rocky ledge. 2 adult-sized, 2 small enough to belong to toddlers. Tiny little rubber Wellingtons, bright colors dulled by snow and age. That sight punched the breath right out of me. My stomach turned to ice. The wind howled through the trees, carrying a sound almost like a cry. The child-sized boots sat there untouched, unmoving. Suddenly the forest didn't feel still anymore. It felt alive. I lifted my eyes from the boots, desperate for something else to look at. Anything but them. That's when I saw a tree. God, it was the biggest damn pine I'd ever seen in my life. And that's saying something in a place like the Black Forest. The thing wasn't a tree so much as a tower of living wood, its trunk as wide as a house. its crown vanishing into the clouds. For a moment, I forgot about the boots, forgot about the silence. I just stood there staring, my breath steaming in the cold air. Then instinct kicked in. I raised my camera and snapped a few shots. Up close, the tree made me feel small, insignificant. Its bark was rough and split, ancient and scarred by centuries of wind and frost. But as I walked around it, tracing my fingers over the surface, I noticed something else. Marks. Not random cracks or scratches. Carvings. Intentional. Words maybe, or symbols. But time had chiseled them down into something half recognizable, half wrong. Part 2. I circled it slowly, the snow crunching underfoot. More symbols emerged as I went. Runes, strange shapes, crosses, and spirals. And above me, tangled in the higher branches, something glittered. I squinted. Small shapes hung from the limbs, trinkets maybe, or charms. Little handmade things twisting in the wind, clinking softly together like faint chimes. Oh, a shrine maybe, some kind of local ritual site. A perfect centerpiece for my article. I took more photos, framing the carvings against the huge wall of bark. The sound of the chimes followed me as I moved around to the other side. I saw it. Something different, bigger. Words gouged deep into the wood. The letters were jagged and desperate, like someone had carved them fast, maybe in fear. I didn't understand most of it, but I recognized the language. Yeah, German. I aimed the camera and took several close-ups, one after another. Der Fleischweber kommt. Du kannst ihm nicht entkommen. Der große Schatten kommt. Wird dich den Tod betellen lassen. Even with my poor German, the rhythm of the words made my skin crawl. The phrase der große Schatten, the great shadow, stuck in my head. Around the message was a ring of carved symbols, 3 triangles locked together, over and over, wrapping the words in a jagged crown. I zoomed in, snapping the shapes one by one, already planning to look them up when I could get back online. Then I noticed something at the base of the trunk. The ground had split open, massive roots jutting out of the frozen earth like bones breaking through skin. Between them the earth had collapsed in places, forming pits, small ones at first, like animal burrows. I crouched down, peering into each of them. Empty, just snow and dirt. But the last one wasn't like the others. It gaped wide, the edges rimmed with frost, the inside swallowed in blackness. I leaned forward, trying to gauge the depth, but my flashlight beam didn't touch the bottom. The darkness inside wasn't natural. It was thick, seemingly like alive, like ink bleeding through paper. I swear it looked like it was spreading, a faint halo of shadow leaking out over the snow. I stood there for a long time, staring down into that hole, and the only thought that came to me was this: something's down there. The longer I stared into that hole, the more it got under my skin. I couldn't tell you why. It wasn't just fear, it was something deeper, something truly wrong. It scared me worse than the silence, worse than the missing animals, worse than the goddamn boots. Because as I stood there, I had this sickening feeling that the hole was staring back at me, like it wasn't empty at all, just waiting. And somewhere in that blackness, something was whispering for me to come closer. I spun around and bolted. The forest seemed to twist around me as I forced my way back toward the cabin, the trees closing in like bars. Every few steps, I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see something crawling up from the snow. But nothing came. Somehow I made it back in one piece. I slammed the door, threw the lock, and didn't stop moving until I was crouched by the fireplace, trying to thaw the chill that had sunk all the way into my bones. Well, that night sleep wouldn't come. I just lay there, eyes open, brain chewing over every strange thing I'd seen. Even before the hole, the woods had felt wrong. Oh, now Now I couldn't ignore it. And those damn boots. I mean, who leaves that many pairs scattered around and never comes back for them? I thought about calling the cops, but there was no service, and no nearby town, nothing. Just me and whatever the hell was out there. I told myself I'd stick it out for a few more days. The paper was paying too well to quit. But if anything else weird happened, I was gone. No story was worth this. Something in that forest wasn't right. I could feel it watching me. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to a knock at the door. At first, I thought I was dreaming, just my nerves playing tricks on me. But then it came again. Slow, heavy, definitely real. My stomach dropped. Who the hell would be knocking at my door in the middle of the Black Forest at 2 a.m? I started breathing too fast, panic bubbling up in my throat. Every part of me screamed to stay put, but I knew that not looking would be worse. Imagination could be crueler than the truth, and so I crept to the window upstairs, my heart hammering in my ears. There it was, a figure, human, I think. My pulse steadied a little, at least it wasn't some wild animal clawing at the door. After a few shaky breaths, I forced myself down the stairs. Oh, every creak in the woods sounded like thunder. My vision tunneled, my hands slick with sweat as I reached for the latch. I kept the chain on, some small shred of instinct telling me not to be stupid. I cracked the door open. And instantly, wished I hadn't. The man outside wasn't just tall, he was monstrous. 8, maybe 9 feet easy, stooped beneath the porch beam. His clothes were shredded rags, his skin dusted with frost. But he wasn't shivering, not even blinking, just standing there in the cold like the night itself had taken human form. His hair hung past his shoulders, slicked with grime, tangled, blacker than the night outside. I left his face for last because it was the worst thing about him. The skin was paper white, shockingly pale against the dark hair in his ragged clothes, like a head cut loose and hovering above me. He had to bend down to look at me, his neck craned, shoulders hunched, and when he smiled, it made my teeth ache. It wasn't a human smile so much as a slack, stupid grin, like someone half asleep or doped up. Childlike and vacant, but not innocent. He looked at me the way a kid eyes an insect before crushing it out of curious boredom. And his eyes, God, they were glazed, oily, rolling slowly in their sockets. There was no color I could find, not black, not clear, something beyond description. Staring into them made my head swim. And we faced each other, really his chest to my face, for a stretch that felt like forever. He didn't speak, he just grinned. All I could hear was my heartbeat thundering in my ears and 1,000 panicked thoughts banging against the walls of my skull. But I couldn't look away from those eyes. And then I tried to slam the door. God, I barely made it. His hand closed on the edge a fraction of a second before it shut, and he did not blink. His fingers were enormous, longer than his palm, like living claws stitched into flesh. He shoved the door back, easing it open a little more, still smiling that same blank, horrible grin. We stood like that, me frozen, every sound amplified, the wind moaning, my breath ripping quick, his breath rasping low. He never moved, never flinched, just watched with that awful look. God, why wouldn't he move? But he didn't know about the keys on the table. Slow and careful, I stretched a hand toward them, keeping everything visible as still as I could. My fingers closed on cold metal. It felt like salvation. I pulled the keys back in, my heart a beating drum, and I held them tight. I knew I'd only get one shot at this. I moved on pure adrenaline, thrusting the keys like a knife. I jabbed them deep into his gut and ripped them out, stumbling back as he doubled over. He didn't howl or roar. Just for a beat, his grin faltered, though, and his eyes slipped away while he clutched at the warm cut. I smashed myself at the door and shoved it closed with everything I had, the wood ringing like it might split. I slapped the deadbolt, dropped to the floor, and curled up there, shaking, the key useless and heavy in my fist like a child's talisman. I sat waiting for the world to explode, for that grin to wedge through the crack, but nothing happened. Half an hour crawled by in silence. When I finally crawled to the window and peered out, he was gone from the porch. Far across the clearing, he turned his back and melted into the trees, walking away like he belonged to the night. Well, sleep left me for good. What had been a creepy assignment slotted straight into a real-life threat now. I wasn't brave. I just kept my head when things go sideways. Running felt stupid. Gather everything in the dark, drive icy mountain roads at night with a psycho wandering the woods? No. Packing would take time, and leaving meant driving blind through a place built to kill you. So I stayed, realism sharpening into something of a plan. Journalist instincts took over. If I couldn't bolt, I could at least document. I had this little wildlife cam in my kit, the kind hunters attach to trees to catch movement. The sort that writes footage straight to a laptop without needing a signal. Stupid? Maybe. Dangerous? Definitely. But I had a hunch he was still in the area, that he and that tree, that hole, were somehow connected. So I resolved to set the camera up around the tree. Plant it in the shadows, let it run through the night, and hope it caught him. The cam would dump footage to my laptop automatically. I wouldn't have to traipse out there in the dark to fetch it. Risky, reckless, and exactly the kind of thing I did when a story and survival collided. In the cabin's utility closet, I found an axe. God, a monster of a thing, meant for splitting logs, long as my damn leg. I didn't know if it had actually helped me if he came back, but it felt good in my hands. Solid, heavy, something that could make a difference. I stepped out into the snow, my heart pounding, the cold biting through my coat. The axe handle was slick against my gloves, the small wildlife camera tucked tight into my pocket. Each step was careful, my breath ghosting in front of me, waiting for that nightmare shape to burst from the tree line. God, every shadow looked like it might move. Every gust of wind felt like breath on my neck. But the longer the woods stayed quiet, the more my courage grew. I retraced yesterday's route as best I could. My footprints had vanished beneath a clean blanket of snow now, but I remembered enough to find the way. The deeper I pushed into the pines, the heavier the air got. There were too many hiding places out here, too many dark hollows between trunks. My nerves started twitching again, but I told myself I didn't care if he was watching me. Let him crouch in the brush and grin, so long as he didn't step out of it. But if I even heard a twig snap behind me, I'd drop everything and bolt for the cabin without looking back. When the tree finally appeared through the haze, I almost laughed with relief. Then the feeling died in my throat. The thing radiated unease like a heartbeat. The smell of damp bark and rot clung to it. I crouched in the ferns, my hands trembling, and tucked the camera into place facing the black hole beneath the roots. I switched it on, a red light blinking, recording. The battery would hold for days, long enough to see whatever the hell came crawling out of that pit. I didn't linger. I turned and started back, fast steps crunching through the snow, my pulse keeping time with my boots. And then, movement, just at the edge of my vision. I froze. My stomach dropped like a stone. There he was. That impossible grin stretched wide, half hidden behind a tree trunk, watching me. Pretending to hide, but not really. Like a cat pretending the mouse hasn't seen it. I forced myself to keep walking. One steady step after another. Don't look, don't run. Don't give him the chase. Or my throat burned with the scream that I wouldn't let out. I felt like prey, and I knew he knew it. Another half-kilometer. Still no sound behind me, no crunch of snow, no drag of breath. I finally let out the air I'd been choking down for minutes. And then, movement once more. Oh, my gut turned to ice. He was there again, crouched behind a slab of rock like some monstrous parody of a man playing hide-and-seek. The sheer bulk of him made the attempt absurd, though. He was too damn big to hide, and yet somehow he'd gotten ahead of me. There was no sound, no trail, no logic to it. Just him, squatting there in the snow, those hollow predatory eyes fixed on me, watching, waiting, drinking in my fear like it was keeping him alive. A hopeless kind of dread spread through me. No one was coming. No one could hear me. If he took me, the forest would keep my secret forever. Part 3. Well, by some miracle, I reached the clearing without another glimpse of him. But I knew he was there, hiding just out of sight, savoring the panic that rippled through me. I slammed the cabin door behind me, twisted the locks, and slid down the wall until I hit the floor. Well, I didn't just cry. I broke. Every bit of bravado I'd built before leaving had burned away to ash. Well, then came the anger, that deep, searing, shaking rage. Who the hell was this thing to play with me like that? I tore through the cabin, packing everything I owned with trembling hands, double-checking each item like it would save my life. I was leaving at first light, didn't care if the story went unfinished. When night fell, I sealed myself in, curtains drawn, doors barricaded, and my axe resting against my hand like a sleeping dog. Sleep came in flashes, feverish and broken. I dreamed of tall, lean shadows with childlike grins and hair black as oil swaying among the trees. When morning finally came, untouched, I nearly cried from relief. Before I even dressed, I stumbled to my laptop. Fingers shaking, I stopped the remote recording, hit full screen and stared at the frozen first frame. Didn't know what I was about to see, but I knew there would be something. Well, the recording kicks off with me fumbling the camera into place, my jittery face dead center, before I hurry out of frame. I scrub through the daylight hours on fast forward, just static and silence and empty forest. And then night hits. The lens flips to night vision, painting the pines in a ghostly green haze. I crank the playback to 5 times speed, eyes darting over every inch of the screen, hunting for motion, especially around that gaping black wound in the ground. There. Oh, wait. Back it up. Yeah, there. A hand. Jesus, slow it down frame by frame to be sure I'm not imagining it. A hand, slick and pale, clawing its way up from the pit. My stomach tightens. I know what's coming, but I can't look away. Another hand joins it, and then a head. His head. He hauls himself out like it's nothing, crouched there for a moment, sniffing at the air. Even from the grainy footage, I can see that faint, dreamy grin. Then he stretches to his full, unnatural height, limbs too long, movements too smooth. Without warning, he jerks sideways and vanishes off screen. I keep scrubbing through the footage, frame after frame. Once between the trees, I catch a shape, something enormous drifting slow across the edge of the shot. For a second, I think the file's corrupted. Must be. Nothing else moves. Dawn's creeping in. I start to think that's it, that the nightmare's over. And then I scream. The man's face slams down into view from above, upside down, staring straight into the lens. God, he's been waiting there right behind the camera. His face fills the frame, eyes burning, mouth stretched wide into that impossible grin. Feels like he's looking through me, pulling me in. I kill the feed. The screen goes black. My own reflection snaps back at me, pale, wide-eyed, and shaking. Something inside me just switched. Not calm exactly, more like numb. My brain hit a fuse, shut down the panic and left me with this hollow, ice-cold focus. No yelling, no shaking, just motion. I stood, dressed fast, dragged my suitcases out into the dead air, and slid into the driver's seat. Key in, engine rumbling to life. Forward, forward. But then the car choked, sputtered, and died. Well, a scream ripped out of me. I stumbled out into the snow, cursing, pleading, bargaining with whatever god or devil might still be listening in that frozen hell. I didn't want survival at that point. I needed it. The rear tires were shredded, carved open like something had taken a knife or claws to them. I sagged, ready to collapse right there in the snow and just let whatever waited in those trees collect me. But then it hit me. 2 spares. I'd packed 2 damn spares. I laughed, ugly and wild, tears freezing at the corners of my eyes as I dragged the replacement tires out. Shouting victory at the sky, swearing like a lunatic because hope, real hope, can break a person as easily as fear. 4 hours. 4 hours in thick, choking snowfall, my hands numb, my breath burning in my throat. By the time I'd finished, it was already 6, and the dark was crawling in. Crawling fast, but I didn't care anymore. Better to fling myself off a cliff than sit still for that thing to come and find me. I tore down the trail, tires skidding, engine screaming, headlights trembling over the snow-choked path. The cabin shrank in the rearview mirror until it was just a smudge against the trees. Relief hit me so hard it felt like a drug, pure release washing over every muscle in my body. Half an hour vanished into the dark. I kept my eyes locked on the road, though, waiting for shapes to break into the beam of the headlights. The axe lay beside me like a sleeping animal, windows sealed tight, doors locked. Safety wasn't real, but it was something to cling to. He couldn't run forever, not at the speed I was pushing. Soon I'd be beyond him. Beyond it. Another 30 minutes, and the idea of lights, warm human lights, felt close enough to taste. A cottage, a ranger post, maybe even that ski lodge I'd passed on the way up. And then, something enormous exploded from the left. A blur of meat and shadow and impossible speed. It hit the car like a meteor. The world ripped sideways. Metal screamed, gravity vanished. I felt my body lift, weightless, and then crack. Bone? Glass. The world tore away and everything went black. When consciousness crawled back, it didn't bring light, just pain, pounding and raw, drilling through my skull. The car was silent, dead. My vision was nothing but thick darkness pressing in from all sides. For a long moment, all I could feel was the agony, each pulse like a hammer strike behind my eyes. Then slowly, the situation seeped in around the pain, cold and heavy and merciless. I was alive. I was alone. And the forest was still out there. The first thing I registered was the rear view mirror hanging below me like some warped little window into another world. Then it hit me. The whole car was upside down. Snow was drifting in through smashed glass, gathering in piles on the ceiling. No, the floor just flipped over. The windshield was punched in like something had tried to claw its way through. I was suspended in midair, the seatbelt biting into my ribs, holding me like a butcher's hook. The axe sat inches from my cheek, its blade buried in the seat beside my head. Oh, a hair width to the right, and it wouldn't have been the upholstery bleeding. Adrenaline slammed into me. My hands moved before thought could catch up, unclipping the belt, bracing, lowering myself down with shaking arms. I checked myself over, fingers trembling across my limbs, ribs, neck. Just cuts, bruises, and a pounding skull. Lucky, maybe too lucky. A cracked bone out here meant death in a frozen metal coffin. The memory of the impact resurfaced. Something massive barreling out of the trees, hitting me like the mountain itself had decided to move. My brain went straight to him. Logic clawed back through the terror. He was tall, sure, fast, but he couldn't throw a car downhill like a toy, could he? It didn't matter. Didn't matter at all. The what could wait. The get out alive couldn't. Fumbled in the glove box, got the map and compass out with stiff fingers. If I kept heading in the right direction, I figured I might hit civilization before the cold or whatever else lived in these woods hid me. Food was gone. Left it at the cabin, thinking I'd be back in hours, not fighting for my life in the middle of a snow-swept graveyard. I laid my coat over the shards, stabbing through the broken window frame, stood out onto my stomach, glass crunching under me. That first breath of open air burned like knives. I left nearly everything behind. Well, the march was torture, each step heavier than the last. My wind-up torch was dying, yellow circles wobbling over snow and roots. Every few minutes I checked the map. Then every 10. Then not at all. Just forward or die. Oh, my eyelids kept sliding down, the cold whispering sleep like a lover. But I knew better. Sit down in this hell and you'd never get back up. Then, a sound, just one, small, almost nothing, yet it hit me harder than the crash. A week of perfect, suffocating silence, and suddenly something else moved. Something alive. The stillness of the Black Forest had been absolute, a tomb sealed tight. Whatever had broken it had no business being there with me. I spun so fast my boots slipped, every nerve snapping awake, the back of my neck crawling like ants were burrowing under my skin. There it was again. Leaves, heavy steps grinding them down. Something walking, something real. Weirdly, the man, well, the thing that had stalked my days and nights, wasn't my first thought. He never made sound, he just appeared. That was his horror, silenced like a blade. Whatever this was, it wanted me to hear it. The crunching circled me, slowly and deliberately. Whatever paced out there in the dark wasn't small. It was big enough to break branches, big enough to breathe like it owned the forest. I started backing up, my legs shaking, lungs pulling tight like I was breathing wire. I've talked about fear already, probably too much. You're thinking you get it. Well, you don't. You know, the cheap kind of fear. The dark corner that turns out to be a coat, the jump when a spider drops from a ceiling tile, the nervous shuffle when you're stuck alone on a late train with someone who won't stop staring. Well, that's child's play. That's fear with walls and light switches and exits. You don't know the kind of fear that crawls into your bloodstream and then thickens it. The kind that wraps around your skull and squeezes until the world shrinks to a single point. Just survive. Fear that tastes like metal and chemicals in your throat. Fear so heavy it warps your sense of time, slows your heartbeat, steals language and logic and leaves you raw, just with instinct and shaking bones. Fear that fills your lungs like smoke and makes every breath a negotiation. That's what I lived in the Black Forest. That's what held my spine in its fist. Part 4. I shuffled back maybe 10 steps and slammed into a tree hard enough to rattle my teeth. The torch beam whipped across the dark in frantic zigzags, bouncing off branches, slicing shadows like prey trying to dodge a predator's talons. Something deep in my brain registered it. The tree wasn't thick like it should have been. Too narrow. Wrong shape, but my thoughts were drowning under the sound circling me, the icy pulse pounding behind my eyes. What broke through was the moment the tree moved. It bent, it shifted, it breathed. I turned, slow, heavy like gravity itself was holding my head, and I already knew somehow that reality had just cracked. Whatever I saw next wasn't going to let me pretend I was safe in the world I thought I understood. Well, you see, we spend our whole lives wrapped in humanity. Human worries, human victories, human nightmares never stretch beyond familiar walls. Our brains don't come built for the things that live outside the light. We aren't meant to comprehend the world past the fence line, past language, past us. There are older shapes out there, ancient, starving and indifferent, things so dense with horror they make all our little fears feel like children's scribbles. Well, that's when I looked up. Something had shifted in the pine canopy above me, massive branches trembling, snow dust raining down. A pale disk pushed through the darkness. That face, that damned smiling face, sliding out from the black like it had always been there, waiting. My legs died under me. I went down hard, scrambling backward, palms carving tracks in the snow. I couldn't scream, I couldn't breathe. My mind was just static, and the grinding, brutal truth of what I was seeing was hitting me finally. It moved lazily, almost proud, stepping into the open like it wanted me to admire it. Like it enjoyed the reveal. Where it looked tall before, human height stretched to a nightmare scale. But now it towered past the treetops, and the upper half looked almost the same. The same slack, dream smile. The same too long hair hanging like a curtain of oil. But below the waist, its legs were 40 feet long. I watched it unfurl to its grotesque full height, lifting up and up until I had to tilt my head back just to keep sight of that leering face. The legs didn't match the body, thin as wet branches, tendons twisting under skin stretched so tight it looked ready to rip. Every shift in its weight made the flesh writhe and pulse, alive with something that should not exist. It took a step and looked bizarrely playful, knees lifting high, arms swinging. Like a cartoon stretched into a nightmare, like some cosmic mockery of human motion. I started choking, my lungs refusing air, my body rejecting reality itself. And then it bent, folded, bones cracked like gunshots as its legs twisted in the middle, joints snapping backward and upward until they arched on either side of its body like two towering, grotesque spider limbs. It crouched. So low, so impossibly low, so close I could hear the marrow grinding. I turned my head and vomited into the snow. When it settled, it was almost at my level, eye to eye, sharing my breathing space. The world narrowed to its face and mine, the sound of my heart trying to escape my chest. What used to be trousers clung in shredded flags around its elongated limbs. Its hair whipped in the wind, wild and unbound, like the mane of something that had evolved to hunt beneath stars we've never named. And in that moment, looking at it, really looking, I understood with perfect clarity. This wasn't a man twisted by madness or myth. This was a predator that the forest itself had tried to forget. And the face didn't change. Same slack, dreamy idiot smile, same eyes that pulled at you like deep water. But as I watched, that grin started to spread, slow and unstoppable. It didn't hinge open like a snake or drop like a broken jaw. No, it just stretched. Skin first, then muscle, peeling like wet paper. Cracks tore up its cheeks, flesh split, blood sprayed across its face and pattered onto the snow, steaming where it hit. From the side it must have looked like something butchered, a hellspawn version of Pac-Man. Jagged, shredded flaps, flesh flailing as its mouth opened wider, wider until its chin slammed into the hollow of its own throat. And then the tongues came sliding out, not 1, 4, maybe 5, twisting around each other like starving serpents. Long, ropey, twitching, tasting the air, tasting me. Each one quivered like it was shaking with anticipation, bristling as if the night itself fed them electricity. Well, the teeth stayed human, perfect, neat, stupid little rectangles in all that ruin. Somehow that detail rattled me the worst. Monstrous shape strapped onto familiar bone, like a skull wearing madness for meat. Fear? There's no point in describing it anymore. Language gives up right here. We stared at each other, predator and prey pretending the second was still a person. It panted through the shredded ruin of its mouth, spit and blood running down its chest. Its chest heaved like it was laughing. Those eyes glowed with hunger older than cities, older than fire. And then it screamed. Not a roar, not an animal cry. A hunting call, sharp and triumphant. A sound built for echoing across ancient dark. It hit like shrapnel. Human agony twisted with a bird's jagged shriek. All of it crumbling into a choking, rattling death croak that cut off so suddenly the silence felt violent. I didn't choose to run. My body detonated into motion. I crashed through thorns, smashing branches, stumbling, sprinting blind. Didn't feel the brambles tearing my legs or the bark splitting my skin. I vaulted a drop I didn't even register, ankle bending with an ugly snap, and I kept going like the pain had been left somewhere in another life. Something primal had taken the controls. Something older than thought, older than words. A leftover programming buried deep in human bone. Run. Outrun the nightmare, outrun extinction. My lungs didn't burn, my muscles didn't scream. I wasn't breathing so much as surviving, every cell firing like it remembered saber-tooths in the dark and knew this was worse. I kept glancing back, my vision shaking with every heartbeat. And there it was, coming for me. Its head flung back like it was screaming with joy, hair snapping in the wind as its twisted, spider-thing body hurled itself after me. It moved just so wrong, scuttling low, upper body lunging forward, arms stretched out like it was ready to feel where to grab me. And those fingers, needle-long, bone-thin, were waiting to close around my spine and drag me back to the dark. A thunderous impact shook the ground and snow exploded behind me. I risked another look. It wasn't running anymore, it was swinging, legs braced on two trees 40 feet apart, using them like arms to fling itself forward, vaulting from trunk to trunk. Its whole body hung in the void between, hunting from above like some ancient predator designed by nightmares, not nature. I tore at the earth with my feet, forcing everything left in me to keep moving. I couldn't let it grab me from overhead, couldn't let those warped limbs snap around me. But no matter how the body tries, human is still human. My breath turned to knives in my lungs, bile burning up my throat, legs giving out in stuttering bursts. I stumbled again and again, each fall harder to stand from, my vision swimming even more. I could feel it breathing behind me, hot, sour, rotten. In my mind, those writhing tongues were already curling around my windpipe. Panic made me throw myself left. Pure instincts, no thought. I rolled through snow and roots, tumbling downhill. Behind me, a crack like a tree snapping in half boomed across the woods as the creature slammed straight into a pine it hadn't expected. I was on my feet before thought even returned, flung forward by one more sliver of adrenaline. But the truth sat in my chest, icy and solid. None of this mattered. I wasn't escaping. This was just my last sprint before the teeth. Didn't even pray for survival. I prayed for the pain to end fast. I prayed for darkness after, for sleep. But then, something in the distance, a shape carved in black against moonlight. My brain told me not to believe it, not to torture myself with false hope. But there it was. A car, a real damn car. Door hanging open like it had been waiting for me. Well, I threw myself inside, slammed the door, fingers fumbling, and then froze. The key. The key was already in the ignition. Whoever drove it here never left, or never came back. A flash of guilt. Gratitude twisted with dread for whoever fed the forest tonight instead of me. I didn't let it linger. I twisted the key, stomped the pedal, and the engine screamed to life. In the same breath, that monster crashed behind me, shaking the vehicle like a god had dropped a fist. I wrenched the wheel, spinning wild across the ice, skidding and fishtailing until I found a line, and then I floored it. The car shot forward, and the whole world blurred. And behind me, that massive thing roared into the night. I couldn't gun the engine the way I wanted, not with thick pine trunks lunging out of the dark like battering rams waiting to rip through metal and bone, and so I pushed the car as fast as the forest would let me, swerving hard, headlights slicing frantic tunnels through the black. In the rearview mirror, it rose once again, not crawling anymore, standing still, stretching itself out like some nightmare unfolding. And then it walked, those impossible towering strides somehow keeping pace with a moving car, each step eating yards of earth like the woods belonged to it. Then I hit a dirt road, rough, uneven, but open. For the first time since the chase began, a spark of hope clawed its way up my throat. I punched the accelerator, and the car jerked forward, pinning me to the seat as the tires spat gravel and the engine screamed like it feared death too. The thing kept coming, but now finally, distance opened between us. Still it didn't run, it just strolled, tall and loose-limbed, like it had an eternity to catch me if it felt like it. Those grotesque legs, cartoonish in the worst way, stretched too far, bending just wrong, strode through the trees without hurry. Moonlight spilled across the road, and its shadow followed me like a curse, long, spindly, a man balanced on stilts made of bone and hunger. Then it began to fade, step by step, swallowed by darkness. The last glimpse I caught in the mirror wasn't the body, it was the face, eyes spinning with hunger, a mouth stretched so wide, smiling like it already knew how the story ends, like it was waving me off. See you soon. I rolled into Singer's Bach when dawn cracked open the sky and spilled pale gold over the rooftops. I stumbled into a roadside place and devoured whatever food they shoved in front of me, ignoring their stares, their questions, their quiet concern. I couldn't talk, couldn't think. Just chew, swallow, survive. Then I was back behind the wheel, flooring it again, speeding like the devil was still breathing on my neck. Didn't care about tickets, about wreckage, about anything except putting miles between me and those endless pine silhouettes. By the time I reached Baden-Baden, I ditched the car, left it right there like it was burning my hands. I couldn't ride around in a dead person's vehicle, not after spotting those dried, rust-red flecks on the dash, the ones I'd missed in the panic. Whoever had owned that car paid for my escape with their life. Their last act was leaving me the keys. I think about them more than I should. Who they were, how deep into that cursed forest they'd wandered before it found them. And if it smiled at them, the same way it smiled at me. I moved like a sleepwalker, running on shock and fumes. I booked the first flight back to Munich, ignoring every call the paper made once they'd realized I'd disappeared early. I didn't take anything to the police. Why would I? They'd laugh, or worse, they'd listen. And then they'd see what I saw. Munich didn't feel like home anymore. It felt small, fragile, like a glass box waiting to crack under a screen. I quit my job without explanation. Didn't tell a soul why. I couldn't. My mouth dried up every time I tried to speak about it. I handed the carving from the tree to an old friend who could read that script. He gave it back a day later, his face pale, his voice thin. The flesh weaver comes. You cannot outrun him. The great shadow is coming. He will make you beg for death. And that symbol carved beneath it, those three linked triangles, a Valknut, mark of the dead, gate sigil, a warning or a promise, depending on which ancient bones you asked. Well, it's been a month now. I don't step outside. The whole world feels hostile. My apartment looks like it was ransacked by ghosts. Well, I eat when I remember how. Sleep doesn't happen, or not really. Every night the same vision bleeds into my skull, a blank road under a colourless sky, that thing striding toward me, never rushing, never stopping, just closing the distance with those sick, lurching steps. When it gets close, the world falls away until there's nothing but eyes like spinning voids and a smile carved too deep into flesh. I always wake convinced it hasn't stopped moving, that it's still out there, still coming, like I'm on a timer I can't see counting down. So, don't go to the Black Forest. Don't even think about it too long. Some places aren't meant for us. You're wondering why I'm telling you any of this? Honestly, I wouldn't be if things hadn't changed. The last 2 nights I've found handprints smeared across my window glass, heard soft knocks like something testing the barrier, caught glimpses of a pale face hanging in the edge of my vision, gone the second I turn. I could explain that away. Pranks, a burglar, some psycho trespassing. It'd be easy if my apartment wasn't on the 4th floor above the street. Well, my dear friends, this is one of those occasions where I've recorded the whole damn thing in one long take. And let me tell you, it takes it out of you. Now, of course, I don't make these recordings perfect. You wouldn't believe how long it takes to edit out of the all of the messed up lines that I make. But it's worth it in the end, I think. And of course, I do my best to always catch the edited parts that need cutting out. And, I don't always get it, but I think I did my best this evening. Well, I am waffling on because brain not working so well. But, well, that was a good one, I thought. Thoughts, feelings, anything else you want to say in the comments section below the video, and as ever, I will do my best to join in the conversation. Thanks to the author, as always, Augustus Cordoba. I know you like the way that I try and say that. I don't know why. It just kind of rolls off the tongue. Anyway, that's it for this evening. Just remember, everyone, it's just a story, and you all sleep well. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.